17 years ago, a law known as the Telecommunications Act of 1996 was signed by President Bill Clinton after being passed by an overwhelming majority in both houses of Congress. This legislation, the first American law to be signed and stored in cyberspace, was passed with the intent to create fair rules for a new era of competition. However, to those who truly understood its implications, fair competition was the opposite of what this bill enabled. Before the Telecommunications Act, a single company could own only 40 radio stations nationwide and 4 in any local market. American media entities were restricted to 1 television station per city, 12 nationwide, and 25% of the national audience. In February of 1996, however, the limits on the number of radio and television stations one company could own were eliminated, and the national audience percentage allowed for television was raised to 35% per company. The deregulation isn't over. Adjustments in years since the bill's passage further allow for media monopoly, like a 1999 decision to allow one company to own 2 TV stations in a major city. In 2003 and 2007, the FCC attempted to allow cross-ownership, where one company owns a newspaper and a television station in a single city. These attempts failed due to outrage by the public. In 2012, the FCC once again attempted to deregulate in this manner, only to be met with more opposition and delayed the decision until mid-2013. The consolidation of major media that has occurred as a result of these changes is astounding. The first week after the 1996 law's passage saw over $700 million of buying and selling in radio station ownership alone. Now 4 companies control 70% of radio audience, with 2 companies, Clear Channel and Viacom, owning 42%. In fact, Clear Channel alone owns over 1,200 radio stations. As a result, full-time radio newsroom staff has dropped 44% and part-time 71% from 1994 to 2001. Television was hit hard too. Congress again raised the percentage of national audience allowed from 35% to 39% in 2003, and now 5 companies control 75% of primetime broadcasting. Due to this further consolidation, local news stations were scuttled in favor of prepackaged programs, which severely limited the amount of voices in television news. A vast majority of media is now owned by 6 companies. News Corporation, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, CBS, and GE share control of 90% of what the American public reads, watches, and listens to. This is quite a contrast from 1983, when 50 companies owned the same percentage. When 6 companies control 90% of the media, they control the message. In fact, when the FCC attempted to further deregulate in 2003, the Pew Research Center found that 72% of people had no idea it was even happening. What was it that allowed the 4% who knew a lot about it, according to Pew, to even gain that information? What wonderful medium spread like wildfire throughout the globe shortly after the passage of this ghastly telecommunications law? Enter the Internet. Operating a television station is considerably too costly for individuals and nonprofit organizations. Even before the current era's monstrous monopolization, most television was produced by massive corporations. Radio shows and newspapers are not as pricey to produce, yet the cost is still somewhat prohibitive for some. The internet provides a platform for any user to broadcast all forms of media for free. Blogs, podcasts, and YouTube channels are replacing newspapers, radio, and television respectively. Compared to the free domain that is the World Wide Web, these archaic media seem inefficient, monopolized, and exorbitantly expensive. The free access to reporting and reading news that the internet provides is having a major effect on where people get their news. Recent data shows that only television remains a more commonly used source of news than the net, with a 50% to 40% split. Given current trends, the web in the next few years will become the main source of news in this and other countries. This free and uncensored digital world allows the news to be reported freely, regardless of personal wealth or political viewpoint. Many issues that were either ignored or sparsely covered by traditional media were given extensive coverage on the web. These issues are ignored if they do not fit the agenda of the corporations that own the majority of media. Much of current reporting is in fact public relations, filled with crafted differences in American opinion, without any of the real controversy that might hurt the Big Six's bottom line. A great example of this is the ongoing court battle known as Hedges v. Obama. On December 31st, 2011, President Barack Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows the federal government to arrest anyone indefinitely without a trial, regardless of citizenship, if suspected of terrorist activity. While the bill itself got almost no coverage by the mainstream media, bloggers from the world over were responsible for getting the story to readers. when journalist Chris Hedges, along with notables such as Noam Chomsky and Daniel Ellsberg, sued the government for this egregious affront to the Bill of Rights, traditional media was conspicuously silent. Fortunately for our freedoms, citizen journalists on the web were able to compensate. Another famous instance of mainstream media dropping the ball only for the internet to pick it right back up is coverage of presidential candidate Ron Paul in 2012. Paul was almost completely ignored by major news organizations due to his unorthodox political views that threatened American imperialism domestically and abroad. He was able to gain unprecedented support on the web, and was the only other GOP candidate besides Mitt Romney to win delegates at the Republican National Convention in 2012, another fact that was absent from major media and celebrated by web users. Let's not forget the almost daily oil spills throughout the country, drone strikes, assassinations of American citizens without trial, genetically modified organisms, America's funding of Al-Qaeda, and many other stories that just aren't reported by the major media thanks to consolidation. The list of topics covered by internet journalists that were glossed over, ignored, or even lied about by the mainstream media continues to grow. No matter how close those in power come to stifling news reporting, no matter how hard they try to censor knowledge and suffocate the truth, those who believe in the freedom of information will find ways to circumvent their efforts. In recent years, there have been attempts by the major media's lobbyists to encourage the adoption of laws that would censor the web. The Stop Online Piracy Act was introduced in late 2011 and would allow law enforcement to instantaneously block access to an entire web domain due to any infringing content read on a whim. This was met with fierce opposition by the online community. Reddit, Wikipedia, and 7,000 other websites took part in a coordinated media blackout in early 2012 in protest of the law and another similar law, the Protect IP Act. This blackout informed an estimated 160 million viewers about the problems with these laws via Wikipedia alone, and Google claimed to collect over 7 million signatures opposing the bill without any mainstream media exposure. This online political action and subsequent flooding of Congress's phone and email lines in protest ended any chance the bills had of passing. That victory may be short-lived. A bill known as the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act is being pushed in Congress, and it forces websites to allow federal law enforcement access to any information they please, regardless of privacy policies or the Fourth Amendment. Once again, the media is silent, and once again, users of that last bastion of free information known as the internet will step up to protect our rights. Perhaps one day, corporations will have the same control over the internet that they have acquired over traditional media. Maybe the government, at the will of these conglomerated media monsters, will pass an internet censorship bill. Whatever happens, if and when that day comes, we, the people, will be prepared with new ways to share knowledge and information with the masses.